Warren Forrest had several things going for him as far as his anonymity to begin with. So he gets caught when he abducts this woman from a Portland park and tricks her to get into his van by saying he's a photographer. And she does something that you just don't do, get in a van with a stranger. And he takes her across the Columbia River to Lacamas Lake in Clark County, and he does unspeakable things to her. Things that you would see in a horror movie. Actually, things beyond what you would see in a horror movie. And he buries her alive, and he leaves her for dead. And she is miraculous, and she survives, and she gets help. And it's what he did to her that is the reason he gets caught. They trace it back to him, and that's how he gets caught. So the Columbian covers that trial, but it's not a murder. So maybe the Portland TV stations were thinking, well, this isn't a murder, and we're not going to cover it. I don't know why.
I don't even know if they actually really even covered that, because from what I understand is that, okay, so October 1st, 1974, that horrific, what you just described, and then by January, and okay, there's the holiday season in there, and then by January, he's off to Western. In this quickie kind of like, and when I interviewed Denny Hunter, I said, how did this happen? And he said, we don't know. You know, I can't tell you why they didn't have their, so the defense provided 3 psychiatrists who basically were like, yeah, was criminally insane when he did this. The prosecution didn't have any of their own.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, they didn't. And so it was like, well, how did this, he's like, this would not have happened today. Okay. And I can't explain why it happened back then. So I don't even know if that was covered. I mean, did you read newspaper reports, or do you have those reports that show that it was covered back then?
I believe I do. I think I have those on my on my flash drive.
I'd love to see those, because I haven't seen anything related to, I mean, I've seen lots of stuff with the trial. I've read the trial transcripts, but I haven't seen anything about that specific time period.
I believe the Columbian covered it.
Okay.
And I have those, I think I have some of those articles.
I mean, it's still...
It's incredibly weird. It's very bizarre.
Yeah.
Maybe the Portland TV stations did cover it and there's just no record of it in the archives. I don't know. It makes no sense to me. I mean, it's every woman's parents of a woman's boyfriend. I mean, anybody who has a woman that they cherish, this is worst case scenario. She gets in a van with a man she doesn't know who then does horror movie things to her. And the fact that it wasn't covered and didn't get much attention is just mind-boggling.
Yeah, I completely agree. So when you found that out and then you started unpeeling the layers to this, what were you thinking? In addition to like Starr, you know, working with Starr, like is that when you really got invested in this?
I don't know that I got invested right off the bat. I think it happened over time. It's that proverbial pulling on a thread of a sweater, and it all comes, and the more you pull on it, the more you get. And then I don't remember who it was, but I had some people share documents with me, and then you realize, oh, this guy is suspected of doing this and doing this and doing this and this, and you're like, well, that's serial killer stuff.
Yeah.
And so with Starr's cooperation, we just kept doing more and more stories and trying to figure out why this had been forgotten, why nothing had happened. And Starr will take a lot of the blame on herself for why this all ground to a halt and why nothing was happened. You know, Starr will talk about how it was too painful. She was young when Jamie disappeared. I think, she was in foster care. She had a lot going on in her life, and I think she needed to find herself. And it wasn't until she hit 40 that kind of she had the emotional strength and depth to say, I need to figure out what happened to my sister and why nobody's been looking for my sister.
Did you do anything before that point that you want to talk about?
We had done quite a few stories by then, and at some point, I dubbed Warren Forrest the forgotten serial killer, because that's what he is.
Absolutely.
Nobody knew who he was. He's been in prison for all these years with all these bodies attributed to him, existing in a no man's land. Very, very strange.
So let's talk about the remains that you and Starr worked on together from the very beginning, because I find this to be amazing, as I told you.
This is 2010, 2011, 2012. I am working on a story in the Oregon Coast Range of mountains, and I get this call from Starr, and she's like, they've lost the bones. They've lost the bones. They've lost the bones. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, there's the girl. They had the last set of remains, and they've lost them. And I back up. What are you talking about? And so the county had several unidentified females, and Starr had known that there was a set of bones that were around the time that Jamie disappeared. And Starr is tenacious. She's very sweet, very soft-spoken, but don't let that fool you.
I hear you.
She is...
Preach.
Yes, she is determined to try and find answers for Jamie. And so she tells me that she's been trying to get the sheriff's office to get those bones, do a DNA sample on them, compare it to her own DNA, and figure out if that's Jamie. Well, then the sheriff's office had to admit that they had lost the bones, and Starr was absolutely beside herself. So being a reporter, I mean, what do you mean? How do you lose a body? How does that happen? And
again, you were probably skeptical. Absolutely.
Because one thing that I have found being a reporter is usually the simplest answer is the answer. Conspiracies are rarely true. It's very, very hard to pull off a conspiracy.
Yep.
It's usually there's a miscommunication, or there's a logical explanation for something. You might not like the explanation, but there's usually a logical explanation for everything. So at some point, I call the sheriff's office, and they admit to me that they've lost the bones.
What were they like?
I can't remember. I honestly can't. And I can't remember whether it was the sheriff's office who told me that, or whether it's the medical examiner's office who told me that. That part is lost to my memory and my notes, which I no longer have. Somebody told me that they'd sent them off to an expert, and that's the last record that they have. What I had already had obtained these internal sheriff's office documents from back in the 70s. And so I started going through the documents, and I found a notation in there that the bones had been sent to a Dr. Snow in 1977. And somebody had told me that he was either in Texas or Oklahoma, and that was maybe associated with the university there. So I just started making phone calls, and somebody, I don't know, it was the University of Oklahoma, University of Texas, somebody said, "Oh, you must be talking about Dr. Clyde Snow, famous Dr. Clyde Snow." I said, "Who is famous Dr. Clyde Snow?"
Because you just had Dr. Snow, you didn't have the Clyde?
I said Dr. Snow.
Or the famous?
I figure out that Dr. Clyde Snow is famous Dr. Clyde Snow, forensic anthropologist. So he is involved in the Kennedy assassination, verifying that these are the x-rays of John F. Kennedy. He's involved in debunking a myth that Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid died in Bolivia. He identified Dr. Mengele, Nazi Dr. Mengele, very, very well known. He's been in the news a lot. So it's Dr. Clyde Snow. And then the next thing is Dr. Snow still alive? So somehow, some way, I get a phone number for him, and I track him down, and he's in Oklahoma. And he answers the phone, and he couldn't be more welcoming, nicer guy. And he says, you know what? I still have my notes from that era. Let me check my notes, and let me call you back. And I don't know how much time goes by. I don't know if it's a day. I don't know if it's a week, if it's 2 weeks. But I get this call from Dr. Clyde Snow. He's like, "Hi, hey Dan, this is Dr. Snow, and yes, I have a record here of getting those remains from the Clark County Sheriff's Office in 1977, and it says here that I couldn't determine anything from them, and I sent them back in 1978 to the Sheriff's Office." So I reach out to the Sheriff's Office or the Medical Examiner's Office, and I say, "Hey, Dr. Snow says he sent these back to you guys and that you're the last ones to have them. And you saying that you sent them off and never got them back, according to him, that's not true."
And didn't he have the receipt to prove it? Didn't Dr. Snow send that to you? Because according to when I spoke to Starr, I think she said that he was like, and I still have a copy of that, which would be amazing.
I don't remember that. I just remember him saying, I remember it being so, that he had the notes, that he had these meticulous notes.
Yes, amazing.
Yes, yes, I have this Jane Doe from Clark County, and I sent them back in 1978. He might have even given me this specific date. I don't.
Yeah, that's fine. And he was from Texas.
Oklahoma, I think. I believe Oklahoma. And so I go back to the authorities, and they do another search, which I don't really hear about the results. And eventually, 2012, I got an email from the medical examiner's office saying that they had found the remains, and they had had them the entire time. That they were Martha Stewart, and that they had been erroneously put in the box with Carol Valenzuela's remains.
I need to pause for a second, because at that point, they didn't even have her identity yet. Martha Morrison, the remains that they had sent to Dr. Snow, they still didn't know who she was.
Right, they still didn't know who she was.
It was you and Starr tag teaming that allowed them to find them.
Right.
And then for them to do genetic genealogy or DNA.
Yes.
Because at that point, they didn't even know that it was Martha Morrison. She was still the Jane Doe.
Right. She still is the Jane Doe. They're in the box with Carol Valenzuela.
Yes.
So Carol Valenzuela and this other mystery remains are found off of Dole Valley Road in this clear-cut area. And they knew who Carol Valenzuela was right away.
From her dental records.
But they didn't know who this other woman was. And what's really sad is, had they not lost the remains, or thought they lost the remains, they could have identified Martha Morrison years and years prior.